Airline Pilot Guy, episode 30. Broadcasting live from Studio 508 in the Sheraton Hotel, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Thought I'd be a little bit different today, play some different music. The other thing I'm doing differently is I'm actually videotaping myself, and I'll have it up on my YouTube channel, which is Captain Jeff TV. I'll have a link to that in the show notes if you want to check it out and see my ugly mug. You know, I kind of look like that Captain Jeff or Airline Pilot Guy avatar, but I think you'll find that the avatar is much better looking than I am in real life. I don't know. Let me know what you think. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, so as I mentioned, I'm here in Oklahoma City, and it's a beautiful day here in the 80s and dry. And first thing I wanted to do, in case you're just finding the show and wondering what this whole thing is about, it is a show about aviation news, but most importantly, it's more than just news. It's aviation news and commentary, and it's kind of my personal soapbox, you know, to express some of the things that I'm concerned about in my profession, being a professional pilot. Now, I fly for a major U.S. airline. Actually, it flies all around the world. It's one of the biggest in the world. And because I'm not an official representative of my airline, I don't tell you what airline I fly for, but most people can pretty much figure it out. But I use the virtual airline name Acme Air. So Acme Airlines is my company, so, you know, so to speak. And I'm a line pilot. I'm not a management pilot. I'm not a training department pilot. I'm a pilot that goes out and flies at least one, maybe two trips a week, flying hundreds, if not thousands, of passengers safely from point A to point B every day, well, almost every day of the week. And I'm here to, well, as I said, talk to you a little bit about what's happening in the news, especially the incidents and accidents going on. I have a safety background. I was in the Air Force before I became an airline pilot. I've been an airline pilot for this major airline, Acme Air, for, more than 23 years now. And before that, I was in the Air Force. And while I was in the Air Force, I flew a couple different airplanes, and I was also qualified as an aircraft accident investigator. I went to the USC Safety School, or Accident Investigation Course. I forget the exact name of the school that I went to, but I am a certified aircraft accident investigator and safety expert. I'm using air quotes. And anyway, for those of you who listen to my show regularly, you know that I have there are some issues that I feel very strongly about. Automation and its place in my profession, and the fact that I believe that many of us are getting too dependent upon it. Anyway, a whole bunch of different issues that I like to express my concern about. I'm also here to answer questions from my listeners. I have a whole range, a whole gamut of people who listen to the show, among them professional pilots like myself, and we have people who are just people who fly a lot, maybe business people who are on the road quite a bit and want to know a little bit more about what's happening on the other side of the curtain. Well, it's not really a curtain anymore. It's a very fortified, very expensive door that separates you from the scum of the earth, us. Just kidding. And there are also people who just kind of know me personally and like to hear me talk about stuff. Kind of weird, huh? Yeah, I have a lot of weird friends. But anyway, whole gamut of people. I have people also, some young people listening to me, several who have told me that they're listening to the show and want to get into this field, this profession, and ask me about what I recommend. And I'll have one of those actually in today's show when I talk a little bit about feedback that I've received. So let us start with listening to and looking at something that happened last week, and it was, let's see, the airline is OLT, and I'm sorry I don't know who OLT is, but apparently it's some kind of a Eastern European airline or a European airline. They're flying the Airbus 320 200 model from Warsaw, Poland to Egypt with 147 passengers and 8 crew. It was en route at flight level 370, about 60 nautical miles north-northeast of Sofia, Bulgaria, when they lost cabin pressure. And so let's listen in to the air traffic control tapes on this incident.
Emergency descent, flight level 214, requesting descent to flight level at least 100, direct Bravo Lima Oscar.
Good morning, Yankee Alpha Papa 7107, continue descent flight level 100.
Continue descent flight level 100, course to Bravo Lima Oscar 7107.
By the way, you notice he said flight level 100. I've talked about flight levels before. In the United States, above 18,000 feet, and that can vary a little bit, but usually above 18,000 feet, the altitudes are referred to as flight levels. So flight level 200 is actually 20,000 feet, and it's a point at which we switch from whatever the local barometric setting is in our altimeter to a standard datum plane or a standard setting of 2992. That's 29.92 inches of mercury. And around the world, it can be a little bit different. There are a lot of European countries where the flight levels go down much lower. And you just noticed here that the air traffic controller instructed the flight to descend to flight level 100, which is 10,000 feet. And you also notice, or you may have noticed, that he's talking, and then all of a sudden you hear this. He's on the oxygen mask. Of course, that's one of the very first things. Actually, it's the very first thing that we do if we have an emergency descent or a loss of pressurization. We grab our Quick Dawn oxygen masks and put them over our face and start breathing 100% oxygen so that we don't pass out and we can continue to fly the airplane. So let's continue.
The Yankee Alpha 7107. We'd like to turn left due to weather.
Yankee Alpha Papa 7107, clear to avoid.
Turning left heading 170.
Yankee Alpha Papa 7107, descend to altitude 5,000 feet. Your position now is 16 miles from touchdown, 2 miles right of center line, turn right heading 300.
Descending 5,000 feet, 7107.
Yankee Alpha Papa 7107, continue right turn heading 310, position 13 miles from touchdown, 3 miles right, left of center line.
Right turn heading 310, 7107.
FM, are you able to tell me the tankage?
7107, we have a fire reported in the cabin, so requesting priority.
Whoa, wait a minute. So we're in the middle of this emergency descent because of loss of pressurization. Now all of a sudden, did you notice what he just said? He said that they have a fire in the cabin.
Yankee Alpha Papa 7107, descent altitude 3,500 feet.
Descending to 3,500 feet, 7107.
Firm position 9 miles from touchdown, 2 left of the center line.
Copy that, 7107.
Here from the 7107, sector 40.
Yankee Alpha Papa 7107, you're right of the center line now, turn left heading 250.
Left 250 with runway inside, standby.
We have runway inside, we declare emergency, we have fire on board, we need fire brigade, Yankee Alpha Papa 7107.
Yankee Alpha Papa 7107, you're clear to land runway 27, the fire brigade is waiting for you.
Left front runway inside, landing, Alpha Papa.
Affirm, surface wind 120 degrees 4 knots.
Copy. We stay on the runway, Yankee Alpha Papa.
Yankee Alpha Papa, roger, continue on the runway.
Tower, Yankee Alpha Papa is evacuating on the runway.
Roger, you're evacuating on the runway, roger, copy.
Okay, so quite an experience for that crew, and they handled it perfectly. Let's see, the airline reported that the aircraft diverted to Sofia due to the loss of cabin pressure, and one of the chemical oxygen generators feeding the passenger oxygen masks produced sparks and visible flames, causing the carpet to catch fire. And I was looking at some of the notes on this incident on AvHerald, or aviationherald.com. That's AVHERALD.com, one of the sites I like to go to kind of keep my finger on the pulse of things happening as far as incidents and accidents around the world. And somebody mentioned that they think that one of the chemical generators, in those overhead panels, actually was dislodged somehow. Maybe somebody really yanked on it or something, but I think they're not supposed to do that, but maybe it wasn't in there correctly to begin with. But anyway, it came down from the ceiling, and these oxygen generators, there's a chemical reaction in there, and it produces a lot of heat, and it hit the floor, was rolling around on the floor, and then because it was so hot, it ended up catching the carpet on fire, and so that's why they had the fire. So it was like a multiple or compound emergency for this crew, and they did a very, very good job of getting that airplane safely down on the ground. So bravo. If you follow me on Twitter, I'm at Airline Pilot Guy, just all one word, Airline Pilot Guy. You may have seen just a few days ago, I put in a link regarding a podcast called the Flight Time Podcast. Is that right? Let me make sure here. Flight Time Radio Podcast. And in their latest podcast, they have nothing but the ATC recordings of an incident that occurred, and I hadn't known about this, hadn't heard about it until I listened to their show, which is excellent, and I'll provide a link for this ATC audio and in the show notes. But I'm just taking a couple little clips here and there just to kind of summarize what happened, but it's one of those events that's very exciting to listen to. It'll keep you on the edge of your seat. But let me set it up a little bit before I start playing the recording. November 114 Hotel Papa is a single-engine Rockwell Commander, and it's piloted by, and I think that there are more than just a pilot on board. I hear voices occasionally in the recording on the airplane. But apparently he's out flying and gets himself into trouble by going into clouds and getting into instrument meteorological conditions, or what we call IMC. And if you are not, now those of you listening who are pilots know this. When you start off in your training, you do a little bit of time under the hood, we call it, where you kind of wear this thing on your head that kind of covers up your view out the windscreen, so all you can see is your instrument panel. And you practice just flying around, just looking at your instrumentation and nothing else. That's one thing, but it's completely and entirely a different thing when you actually are flying through real weather. If you're in the clouds and you can't see anything outside the airplane, you get sensations that are just really hard to ignore, and it's really difficult to look at your instrumentation and trust what the instruments are telling you. I remember the first time I was in an airplane where I was, in fact, it was in the Air Force in the T-37. I think it was my first ride in the T-37 trainer, and I was just amazed at how my instructor pilot could actually fly that airplane. I swore that we were upside down, or we were turning, or 90 degrees of bank, or I don't know. And I was looking at the instruments, and I just couldn't believe them. I couldn't believe that we were flying straight and level. And I was just thinking that this instructor pilot was just a pilot god. But anyway, it doesn't take too long to finally get over that feeling and trust your instrumentation and start getting used to flying airplanes in instrument conditions. And that's why we have ratings, instrument ratings. And, well, anyway, I'm kind of getting off the track here. This guy is a VFR pilot. He's not an instrument-rated pilot. Probably has a little bit of experience flying under the hood, but not in real instrument conditions. And he gets himself into big, big trouble, and he knows it. You can just tell in the tone of his voice. So let's start listening to Jacksonville Center actually Jacksonville approach, I believe, as they converse with November 114 Hotel Papa.
Jacksonville approach, this is 114 Hotel Papa. 5,200 feet.
114 Hotel Papa, Jacksonville, roger. Ident, Jacksonville altimeter 3033, and say again your altitude.
Ident 033.
No, sir. Present squawk. What's your altitude, please, sir? What's your altitude? Jacksonville altimeter 3033.
North local.
North.
Switch 41.
Rattler 41, tower local channel 3, over. Jams 23, turn number 114 Hotel Papa. I've been checking the weather for you. Daytona is VFR. 1,700 scattered, 2,500 scattered, and visibility 7. Verify you want to continue to Daytona.
This is 114 Hotel Papa. I have approximately 45 minutes of fuel left.
Okay, Jams 23, descend and maintain 3,000 present heading. 4 Hotel Papa, roger. Let me check on the other airports. The only other one that's VFR in the local area is Ocala. Ocala is VFR, and their weather is 1,800 scattered, measure ceiling 4,500 broken, and visibility 10. Lumax 920, turn, and over 114 Hotel Papa. All right, what about Ocala?
114 Hotel Papa, we're in heavy clouds. 114 Hotel Papa, come back.
Okay, no, 4 Bravo Hotel Papa, we had the center check, and they're saying it's 44 minutes to Daytona, 44 minutes flying time to Daytona, and 43 minutes to Ocala. That's the only 2 reported VFR fields in the area.
I'm heavy clouds now at 5,000 feet. Could you pass me on through to Daytona?
Yes, sir. Maintain VFR condition. I will hand you off to Daytona Beach approach, sir.
Okay, we'll keep it up.
Commander 4 Hotel Papa, are you IFR qualified and equipped, sir?
No, sir, I'm not.
Express 215, I got an aircraft, needs some help there. He's making some circles there north of the Jacksonville airport. Can I get you to climb up to, say, 500 feet above him and get over there and see if you can see him and get him started on a track towards the southeast, help him out on there?
215, once you're ready to take me over towards him, we'll see what we can do about it.
All right.
Okay, as you can tell, he checks in with Jacksonville approach and says his altitude and the fact that he is in trouble. He doesn't right off the bat say that he's not an instrument-rated pilot, but I can kind of sense that the air traffic controller knew that this guy wasn't comfortable in these conditions. And this, as I mentioned, this tape is about, or this recording is about, well, just under an hour in length, and I kind of distilled it down to about 10 minutes worth of little snippets. So quite a bit of time elapses between a lot of these transmissions. And so about 20 to 30 minutes into this recording here, I jotted down some notes. Actually, only about 16, 17 minutes into it is when Jacksonville Approach decides to see if another flight, a Baron Express 215, might be able to help, might be able to see this guy and kind of guide him in the right direction. What's happening is he's in the weather and he is trying to fly straight and level without turning, and Jacksonville Approach is trying to give him vectors to get him over toward an area of the coast that, Ormond Beach and Daytona Beach, that has visual meteorological conditions so that he can see and he can land. But this guy is just flying around in circles because he can't concentrate on keeping the wings level, and so every time he looks away, we developed something called an instrument cross-check. So when we're flying the airplane, hand-flying the airplane, and we're looking at all our instrumentation and we can't see anything outside, we're looking primarily at our artificial horizon, And then we'll look over at our airspeed and then back to our artificial horizon. And then we'll look at our altitude and then back to the artificial horizon. That becomes your center point for your instrument cross-check. If you're not used to doing that, if you're not trained in this, it's a very difficult thing to do, and it's really easy to fixate on something. So if you're trying to fly a heading and you're staring at that instrument, you kind of forget to look back at that artificial horizon, which is, presenting you with the sky and the ground and your wings, and you can determine whether your wings are level and what your pitch is and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, so he's out there flying around in circles, and Jacksonville is thinking, you know what, this is not working very well for this guy, so let's see if we can find somebody that can get up there and maybe they can kind of guide him to where he's going, or maybe even this guy can see the Express Flight 215 and follow him to Daytona Beach or Ormond Beach. So let's resume the recording.
4 Hotel Papa, what's your altitude now?
Altitude 4,500.
Okay, Express 215, stop your climb at 5,000, please, and fly heading 350, 350.
350 at 5,000, 215, no problem. I just lost it again.
Okay, that's several times during this recording he mentions that he's losing it, which means that he's lost his cross-check. He's probably in some kind of a steep turn or maybe even a spiral dive, and then he recovers from it. And it's just, he's experiencing vertigo and that weird sensation you get that, your head is telling you one thing, but your instruments are telling you something else. And so that was just one of those instances where he loses it.
November 4 Hotel Papa, I know your fuel's getting pretty short now. What we maybe need to do is start pointing you towards the Jacksonville Airport and descending through the clouds there and get you down underneath those clouds. They're pretty low, but you're getting short on fuel.
Getting real short on fuel, sir.
All right, do you want to try that?
I'll try anything that'll get me on the ground, quick.
All right, what's your altitude now?
Altitude is 4,600 feet.
Okay, the first thing I want you to do is try and get steady on a 210-degree heading. 210 degrees. I want you to do your best to steady up on that heading.
210-degree heading. 210-degree heading.
You hear this a lot with people that are new to flying, and I did it myself when I was a student pilot. Trying to fly and talk on the radio at the same time is difficult at first, and then when you're in a very stressful situation, as this guy is, obviously he has passengers on board this airplane who are depending upon him for their lives, and he probably realizes that he's responsible for the lives of I don't know how many people on board this airplane. And so he made a radio transmission and has the button depressed, and so that's why you continue to hear the propeller noise in the background.
All right, 4 Hotel Papa, just continue on that 210 heading and keep it steady. I want you to trust that compass. When that comes steady, you watch your compass and leave that steady at 210.
I'm a straight level flight, 5,700 feet, on a course of 210.
Okay, November 4 Hotel Papa, sir. If you're able to fly heading 270, and get steady on that heading if you can.
Okay, new controller.
Just keep your directional gyro and correction, your artificial horizon. It's operating normally, correct?
Roger.
Okay, keep the wings level. And steady up on a heading. What does your directional gyro say right now?
My directional gyro says 90 degrees, but that's not right.
Okay, then. Well, just keep your directional gyro right where it's at now. It doesn't matter what it says. Keep your artificial horizon level and Tell me what your airspeed says.
46 line. Airspeed is 110 knots.
All right, 110 knots, and your artificial horizon is level, and your directional gyro is steady. You should just keep it like that. Don't, and you'll fly straight and level that way. What we're going to do is try to reduce the power and start a descent for you. Think you'll be able to do that?
Yes, sir.
All right, now keep your directional gyro just like it is. It doesn't matter what the heading is. And start a very slow descent, about 300 feet per minute.
Roger.
Every 300 feet, I want you, well, about every 30 seconds, if you would, to just tell me what your altitude is reading. Very calm now. Just be as relaxed as you can. Keep your directional gyro on the same thing. Keep your wings level on your artificial horizon. Very slow descent.
Roger.
These air traffic controllers are doing a wonderful job, especially this guy. He has a very kind of a calming, soothing voice, and he's trying to be very encouraging to this very, very upset and probably scared VFR pilot.
Looks like you're turning a little bit now to the left. Make sure you believe your artificial horizon. Don't believe your feelings. Your feelings are not correct. All right, say your altitude now.
600 feet.
All right, you're doing great. Perfect rate of descent. Just keep the wings level. You're doing real good. You're in a little bit of a left turn now. Need to keep them level. There you go. You got it back.
That's low to the ground, folks.
500 feet.
All right, now we've had a pilot report that 380 feet is the ceiling out there. You're turning to the left. You need to stop that turn. Straighten out. Level flight.
Bring me in to land me.
Yes, sir. You're only a few miles off the end of runway 25 at Jackson International.
Got my wheels down. I don't guess I need any flaps yet, do I?
No, sir. You won't need the flaps yet. Just normal flight and the wheels down. Keep your wings level now. Say your altitude.
I'm down below the clouds at 450 feet. If you direct me to the airport now, I think I can see it.
Yes, sir. Can you make a safe right-hand turn?
I'm down below the clouds at 450 feet.
Okay, right up to the northeast of you, there's an airport, and Jacksonville International is directly off your right wing. Can you turn safely?
Yes, sir.
4 Hotel Papa, you're about 4.5 miles from the runway. Your heading is perfect. Let me know when you see the interstate up there. And 4 Hotel Papa, you're about 3.5 miles from the runway. Be sure to keep it below the clouds now.
That's for sure. Thank you, sir.
I think he sees the runway right now, but he doesn't tell the controller that.
See the interstate up there? It's about a mile ahead of you.
Maybe not.
It was a little bit too much. I gave you too much of a turn. Let's turn back to 250. You're crossing over the interstate there. You see it heading to your right just a little bit?
Go to the interstate.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, sees the interstate.
Runway's just ahead and a little bit to your right, 250 degrees. You're 1.5 miles from the runway. It's a big, long runway. You don't have to worry about overshooting or anything.
Roger, thank you, sir.
This is when I think he sees it.
All right, now you're right on the center line. It's just ahead and slightly to your left.
Roger, sir. I'm going to definitely put it down right there.
All right, you got the runway in sight?
Definitely do, sir. Thank you.
All right, real good. We're glad to hear that.
God knows, and God bless you, and God bless everybody who's helped me.
All right, man. Everybody's here happy, and God bless you, too.
Yay! A happy ending. Nice job again. All the controllers in Jacksonville approach and the Express 215 flight that attempted to meet up with that airplane and guide him down, which turned out it didn't work, but that's a difficult thing. Even if you go out there to plan, or you plan on doing like a formation flight, a lot of planning involved there and a lot of skill involved. So that was one of those things where, you know, probably had a very low chance of success, but at least the guy was willing to go up there with his Baron and try to find that VFR pilot in his Rockwell Commander. So anyway, if you want to hear more about or listen to the entire recording, head over to Flight Time Radio. You can find that on iTunes and listen to that last episode where he has the whole, or they have the whole recording. All right. You may have heard about this. Alaska Airlines and the Alaska Seafood Marketing Institute unveil a 129-foot salmon. Now you're asking yourself, I know that salmon can get pretty big, but 129 feet? Well, they're calling it, they painted the one of their 737 800s in the colors of a salmon, and they're calling it the Salmon 30 Salmon 2. I guess they've done this before. In 2005, they did the same kind of thing with a 737-400, this time an 800, so it's a little bit longer. And if you're watching the video, I'm going to put that on the screen right now. That's a picture of it, and I'll try to include that in the show notes as well, so you can see what a 737-800 looks like, painted like a huge salmon. They even put gills on the wingtips, or the winglets. Pretty cool. Okay, one of the ways that you can kind of keep track of what I'm doing as the Airline Pilot Guy is to follow me on Twitter, and I'm Airline Pilot Guy. I think I mentioned that before. And among the people that follow me on Twitter and occasionally send me information about stuff is Mariana. Actually, no, not Mariana. Her iPod actually is the one that communicates with me. This is from Mariana's iPod. Listen to this recording, kind of interesting.
Remote-controlled aircraft or what? Something just went by the other way.
I'm sorry, and what was the position so far ago?
About 20 to 30 seconds ago, and it was like a large remote-controlled aircraft.
536 right? Thanks, I'll go ahead and report that. Thanks, and 536 contact Denver, or sorry, contact Mexican Tower 118.6.
18.6, 5-608. Take care.
Mariana's iPod thought I'd be interested in that because I talk a lot about drones and that kind of thing, and you know whether they should be sharing the same airspace as we are. And so I thank you very much, Mariana. If you'll thank your iPod for sending me that tweet, I appreciate it. And I guess they never did find out what that was. It could have been a balloon, a weather balloon. It could have been a remote-controlled vehicle, like a remote-controlled aircraft, like maybe, well, I guess they were about 8,000 feet MSL, so that was about 3,000 feet above the ground. So it's most likely a remote-controlled, like a drone, a remote-controlled airplane, like somebody's hobby airplane, or perhaps maybe a large bird. I don't know. So as far as I know, they haven't figured that out yet. So let's move on. Voice feedback. I have a voice feedback line. It's a Google Voice number, 304-99-PILOT, 304-997-4568. And one of those who likes to use it, and I appreciate it every time he does, is PJ in Houston. Let's listen to what PJ has to say.
Hey, Captain Jeff, it's PJ from Houston, Texas, calling again. Still enjoying the show. I appreciate every episode. And I just want to call in to respond to another caller of yours who called in recently, Halal, called in to talk about the FARs regarding electronic devices. He was quoting from 14 Code of Regulations Part 91, which is the set of rules that governs general aviation pilots and general aviation operations. So as a private pilot, that's what he and I would fly under. However, the air carriers, airlines, operate under a different set of rules that are located in Part 121 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Title 14, also known as the Federal Aviation Regulations. The pertinent rule for electronic devices in that set of rules is found under Part 121.306. And the language of that rule is actually very, very similar to the one in Part 91 that Halal was quoting, with the exceptions of the portable voice recorders, hearing aids, pacemakers, and electric shavers. The difference is, instead of anything that the operator of the aircraft deems is safe, it actually says any other portable electronic device that the Part 119 certificate holder has determined will not cause interference with the navigation or communication system of the aircraft on which it is to be used. And it says the determination of this in that paragraph shall be made by that Part 119 certificate holder operating the particular device to be used. So basically, it's not up to the operator of the aircraft, the captain. It's actually up to the airline, the certificate holder, to determine the set of rules of what will work and what will not work. As opposed to, as far as the 10,000 feet rule is concerned, I haven't found anything in the FARs to dictate that you can't use certain things under 10,000 feet. But the explanation that I've heard from people in the industry about why that's under 10,000 feet is because that's the critical phase of flight. That's like the point at which where the cockpit is under sterile cockpit rules, where the only conversation can be regarding the actual operation of the aircraft. The reason the passengers have to turn off the electronic devices is because the flight attendants need to be able to give instructions, and the passengers need to hear those instructions in the event of an emergency. If a passenger is sitting there with their noise-canceling headphones on or having loud music blasting in their ears, then they can't hear those instructions that the flight attendants are giving. So that's why under 10,000 feet, they want you to turn all electronic devices off, because they don't want to go through the whole long list of exceptions and get in arguments with people. If they make a blanket rule that if it's electronic, it's going off, that means that your full and undivided attention can be paid to the flight attendant. But anyway, I just wanted to share that thought with you. So while Halal was technically correct as far as the regulation governing general aviation operations, and the fact that the operator of the aircraft has the authority to determine what can be used, it's actually a little bit different for Part 121 air carriers. I haven't looked into it, but I'm sure it's even different, even further difference for the rules governing the on-demand charter operators under Part 135. Anyway, thanks a lot for the great podcast. I really enjoy every episode. Look forward to it, and we will talk to you later. Thank you.
Thank you, PJ, for that feedback. And, yeah, thank you for the clarification. You're right. He was talking about Part 91, and we who fly for the scheduled airlines operate under Part 121. And so you made some good points. Thanks for sending that in, and keep sending it in. It's always interesting when you do. He mentioned Hillel in his feedback, and I received more feedback from Hillel, this time not voice feedback, but written feedback, email feedback, and you can send that to feedback@airlinepilotguy.com. And Hillel writes, "Hi, Captain Jeff. I don't want to get into whether or not the father's story is fishy." Of course, he's talking about the incident up at Providence, Rhode Island, and when the father and his young son were going through the screening process, and they found some gun parts in stuffed animals. And so let me continue with his feedback here. He said he doesn't want to get into whether it was fishy or not, because I said I thought it was kind of fishy. Instead, I'd like to point out a bit of inverted logic on the part of the TSA. Of course, the TSA would take the position that we screen because people put guns in toys. But, as usual, that's a short-sighted, immature, and political response. Let's assume for the moment that the estranged wife put the gun parts in the toys. And the logic is therefore that knowing he's going to be screened at the airport, upon the TSA finding the gun, this would get the husband in trouble. If there wasn't a pre-existing hype about TSA screening, and in particular the widely recognized and easily anticipatory impact getting caught with gun parts would cause, the husband Would the wife have even thought to put the parts in the toys? So rather than the logic being, quote, we screen because people put guns in toys, and taking credit for an aggressive yet still largely unnecessary and ineffective program, the actual logic that fits this situation is people put guns in toys because we screen. The reality is, people with the true intelligence and motivation to get a gun through TSA screening in order to use it while in some phase of travel would not do something so obvious and sophomoric as was done here. The angle the TSA could have taken, which would have actually improved its credibility and demonstrated the effectiveness of its program, would have been to state that it regrets and doesn't appreciate that there are people out there who would take such actions as to abuse the security system and disrupt the air traveling consumer market, and that it's a screening program and that its screening program was able to effectively distinguish a true threat from a false threat. Anyway, feel free to summarize and reframe this thought as you wish. Oh, no, I read it exactly as you stated it, Hillel. I don't think I could have done a better job. You're a very good writer. He ends it with, have a great day, be clear and unlimited. I'm trying to be clear and unlimited. My girth is unlimited. Just kidding. Anyway, as always, I appreciate your feedback, Hillel. Continue to send it in if you don't mind. Let's see, where should we go now? Lots of feedback. Last time Hillel used the SpeakPipe voice feedback widget or tab or whatever you want to call it on the Airline Pilot Guy website, which you can do, dear listener, by going to airlinepilotguy.com. You'll see that blue tab on the right side of the screen, and just go over there and click on it, and it'll use your microphone on your computer, and you can record something, and it'll send it to me automatically. So do that, please. And we had a couple people do that for this show, and actually, let me read this first. This was some plain old email feedback sent in by somebody in Egypt, and then he also sent in some voice feedback using the SpeakPipe voice feedback widget. Let me start with his email feedback. Dear Captain Jeff, I am Nilesh, and I'm listening to your Airline Pilot Guy podcast since episode 28, but I had your previous podcasts recorded and completed listening to them, and also episode 29. So he's all caught up. I love the way you explain everything, and it's very easy to understand. I'm sending you an article which I have taken from an Indian news company about a fateful incident in India on 11 May. And so that was about a week and a half ago. And here's the article. Plane hit kills owner. The owner of a microlight private plane died today after the approaching aircraft struck the 40-year-old standing dangerously close to the runway clicking pictures. I'll say he was dangerously close. He was actually on the runway. So he's taking pictures of this microlight private plane coming in for landing. Police said that after the fatal collision on the outskirts of Meerut City this morning. A police official said Delhi businessman Yogesh Garg suffered deep gashes on the head and just fell down on the airstrip. So I guess, let's see, he was, this man runs a consultancy firm in Delhi, and they flew to this airstrip at Partupur near Meerut City. It doesn't matter where it is. A pilot and another friend of the owner flew in the airplane for about 15 minutes. They were preparing to land at 10:17, but Garg, the owner who was killed, was busy taking pictures. While doing so, he came dangerously close to the runway and was hit by the aircraft. Let's see. The police said that by the time that the pilot spotted this man, it was too late to overshoot the runway. And here's a quote from the pilot. He said, "The aircraft was in a slower speed, and it would have been dangerous for the two of us to abort. I heard a sound. The aircraft had hit something. Then I looked at the propeller. Although the engine was working properly, it caused turbulence and tilted." Then I found the left wheel of the aircraft was missing. I somehow managed to stop the plane. And I guess the aircraft suffered injuries or damage on the wing and wheel. And, of course, the owner of the airplane, who was taking pictures on the ground, suffered a fatal injury to the head. A very sad thing. So, lesson out there, or the moral to the story, don't get too close to a runway when airplanes are operating on it. Let's see, Nilesh writes, from this we understand that we have to be aware even if our feet are on the ground. The victim clearly casually crossed the safe distance and stood on the runway. But the more interesting thing is that if the airstrip was still used for taking off and landing flights, even if in small amounts, the proper security measures should have been taken by the Directorate General of Civil Aviation to put some kind of authority in place. You're right, Nilesh. And once again, you do a great effort on your shows, in your podcast. They're really great. He also adds, for your recommended weather apps, you should use Weather Underground on the PC. He says, I know you already use it. Yes, I do. And Arrow Weather on your iPhone/iPad. And I use that as well, and it's a free program. I think you can pay a little bit more to skip all the ads, but they don't bother me. So it's free to download for your iPad or iPhone. It's called Arrow, A-E-R-O, Weather. And in fact, I used it several times today while flying the friendly skies. So thanks, Nilesh. And speaking of the voice feedback, Nilesh used the SpeakPipe to send me some of that. So you want to hear his voice? Let's listen to it, shall we? I'm just going to go over here and click on this button right here.
Hello, Captain Jeff. I am Nilesh, speaking from India. I am 15 years old. I just love your podcast and just started to hear your podcast from episode 28. But I have a record of your previous podcasts and I just finished listening them all. And your latest podcast, episode 29, is great. I feel that you explain it very much easier than others. Keep it up and your effort on your podcast. I need a recommendation from you of some books on ATC communication. I am a little confused in it. Hope you can help and keep up your effort. You'll do great.
Well, thank you, Nilesh, and your English is great. I tell you what, your English is so much better than my Indian. And I'm probably not even correct when I say that. Is the language that you speak in India Indian? I don't think so. It's something else that I don't know. So anyway, nice. I can understand you very well. Apparently you were on a motorboat or something when you recorded that. Now I must be picking up some noise from your computer or something, but I could still hear you, so thank you. Now, in regard to your recommendation for something that you can read or listen to regarding radio phraseology, you can look at this. I tried to do a little bit of research on this, and I came up with a couple links, which I'll include in the show notes. One is the FAA's Radio Communications Phraseology and Techniques, and the other is FAA Order J0710.65U, Air Traffic Control. And I think that's the Air Traffic Controller's Handbook. And I'll have a link to that, the FAA.gov website, and it's a PDF. And both of those are free to access via the Internet. You might also want to go to, there are several great podcasts out there in aviation podcasts. Unlike mine, they kind of dwell more in specific areas such as general aviation and such. And one of them is, actually this one is, I think, a general aviation pilot and an airline pilot. They do a show called Hangar Flying. You can find that by just Googling it or heading over to iTunes, looking in their iTunes store or podcast directory under aviation. Hangar Flying, and they have, each episode is dedicated to a certain aspect of flying, so you might be able to learn something about phraseology from that. And let's see, if you listeners have any recommendations for Nilesh as far as perhaps listening to something that might help him with radio phraseology and techniques, please send them to me, and then I'll get those to Nilesh. Thanks again, Nilesh, for sending your feedback in. And speaking of SpeakPipe and voice feedback, let's listen to one more, this one from Brian. Brian.
Hey Captain Jeff, this is Brian from Papua. I know I already sent you some email feedback, so I'll keep this kind of short, but as I was flying along today, I was thinking a bit more about the circumstances of the crash there in Jakarta and the possibility of some low-level flying, and I was just remembering another accident that happened. It was a military aircraft, must have been 6, 7, 8 years ago, in the Middle East, Pakistan, or in Africa, somewhere, that also was doing some unauthorized low-level flying and impacted the terrain. So I don't know if you remember that or if you could dig up anything, but it'd be very interesting to compare the situation, or at least refresh all of our memories about that previous crash and maybe contrast it with this one. So anyways, well, have a good day, and love the podcast. Keep it coming. It really keeps me entertained as I fly along. So thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Well, I knew Brian would come through for me. He's the guy that flies for the Catholic mission in Papua and in Indonesia, and I knew that he would know something about the terrain there. I did do some research, Brian, regarding that. I couldn't find that particular incident you were talking to me about, so if you can find it, please send it to me, and then we'll talk about it. But yeah, not the first time that we've had controlled flight into controlled flight into terrain, CFIT, and it probably won't be the last time either. Let's see. I thought you had sent me some email feedback other than the voice feedback, but I don't see it on my list here, so it may be somewhere still in my email program, and I'll have to find it if it's still there and talk about it next episode. But I don't want to dilly-dally around. I want to keep this thing moving. And so let's go from Brian Potinger, I hope, again, I'm pronouncing your name right, to another Brian, this time Brian Padley. He is the brother of my friends Nick and Pat Padley, the hosts of the podcast In Between Sundays. Anyway, Brian writes, "Hi, Captain Jeff. How are pilots managed? Do you have a supervisor that you report to? Do you have a performance review? How are pilots' performance judged, and does it affect how much of a raise you get, or is everything based on seniority? You stated in the past that you don't want to switch the plane that you fly because you would not have as much seniority on a different plane. If Acme were to get new planes, say the 787, would you consider switching? Would everyone start out at the bottom on a new fleet? How would this work? Keep up the great podcast, Brian in Chicago." Thank you, Brian, for your feedback. And again, Brian used feedback at Airline Pilot Guy to send in his feedback. Okay, first off, how are we managed? Do we have a supervisor that we report to? Well, yeah, sort of. Our supervisor is one of the chief pilot for your pilot base. And in Atlanta, we have several pilots. We have one main chief pilot and then several assistant chief pilots. And then we actually have a whole chief pilot support center, people on staff that help with the various things. But, you know, my interaction with my supervisor is very little to none. I mean, I basically come to work, sign in on the computer, fly the trip, come back home, and then come back to work for the next trip. You very rarely, in fact, you know what? I'm not even sure I could tell you who the chief pilot is right now. That changes every year or so, and I don't even know who my supervisor is, what his name is. And if he's listening, oops, sorry. But that's a good thing. You know, the saying is, I want to make it through my entire career without my chief pilot knowing my name, and vice versa. Anyway, how is performance judged? Performance is really not judged. The only time performance is judged is when we go into the training, or recurrent training, which used to be a yearly thing, and now it's every 9 months. And we are, tasked with doing certain things, and we're graded on that. But that has nothing to do with how much money we make. Everything that we or our pay scale or our hourly rate is based upon the airplane that we fly and how many years we've been with Acme, and that tops out at 12 years. So if you're the first year, you're in the first year of your career and you're flying, let's say the 767 as a first officer, then your pay rate is this. If you stay on that airplane, the second year your pay goes up. The third year your pay goes up. So we have this big chart that have all the airplanes listed, and generally speaking, the bigger the airplane, the higher the pay rate, and the number of years of service, the rate goes up as well. And as I mentioned before, it tops out at Acme anyway at 12 years. So the way we get pay raises is to fly on the next biggest airplane. Now, there are a lot of other factors involved here too, but I talked about staying on the airplane that I fly because I'm pretty senior on it, and that means that while I can fly just about any airplane at Acme, even the big wide bodies, I probably wouldn't have enough seniority to fly that much during the month, or at least fill up as much as I am doing now, and I can make up for the difference in the pay rate by just flying an extra turnaround or an extra 1 or 2 day trip. So in this way I can kind of make the same kind of money approximately, and also have more control over my schedule. I don't get really cool European layovers, of course, by flying the MD-88 here in the United States and Canada, Mexico, and the Caribbean. Excuse me. But that's okay. I get to stay in the same time zone, or maybe just 1 or 2 time zones away from my Eastern time zone, so I consider that an important thing. Anyway, he said you stated in the past that you didn't want to switch planes, blah, blah, blah. Okay, yeah, if we get a new airplane like the 787, which is a possibility in the future, no, what happens is that the company puts out something they call an advanced entitlement bid. So basically they'll say, hey, we have certain vacancies on this particular airplane, or perhaps we have too many pilots on this airplane at this base and we have surpluses. So we're putting this potential movement up for what we call bid. And if you want to, let's say for instance I decided, you know what, I finally just want to fly the 767, even if it means I'm not going to be a senior. So the next time an advance entitlement is released, I put in my request, and if I have enough seniority, and I have if I'm ahead of enough people who want this airplane, or I'm not too far, actually it's more appropriately too far behind the number of people senior to me who want that particular position on that particular airplane in that particular city or base, then I'm awarded it. And then I go to training within a few weeks or months, and then I start flying it. So I don't know if that was very clear or not, but that's basically the way everything works. In real estate, I've mentioned this before, everything is location, location, location. In the airline industry, for most of us, it's seniority, seniority, seniority. The airplane that we fly, the place we're based, the schedule we fly, our vacations, everything is determined by our seniority, and pretty much nothing else. So thank you for your question, Brian, and keep them coming. Now, I mentioned I have some young listeners like Nilesh in India, who is 15. I received this feedback from Keen, and actually the first time he sent it to me was a couple months ago, and somehow I lost it. So if you're one of those people out there that sent me email or feedback of some sort, and I haven't talked about it on the show, well, I'm not doing that on purpose. I probably just misplaced it and forgot about it somehow. So don't take that personally. And so if you haven't heard me talk about your feedback, we'll resend it, and then perhaps that will tickle my what are those things called in your brain? Your synapses, and I'll take care of it on the next show. Anyway, this is from Keen. He is from Western Australia. He's 12 years old. He lives in Perth. And let me read you his feedback. Since about 2 years ago, when I flew on a 737 and a 767 with Qantas, I've been hooked on aviation. My ultimate aim is to be an A380 captain at Qantas. I've been listening since about episode 4 of Airline Pilot Guy, but I've gone back and listened to episode 28 of Catholic Pilot. Like you, I'm a Catholic and I really enjoy listening to Catholic Pilot. Airline Pilot Guy is great because you give us news I can't find elsewhere. And just an aside here, the Catholic Pilot podcast that he's mentioning is the way I started podcasting back September-ish 2009 was a show I called the Catholic Pilot Show, and I talked about mostly the stuff that I talk about on this show, the Airline Pilot Guy show, but I also talked a little bit occasionally about my faith and my conversion story and all that kind of stuff. But I decided that some of you really have no interest in that, so that's why I kind of broke it off into the Airline Pilot Guy podcast a while back. And I'm continuing occasionally to put out episodes of Catholic Pilot, and if you're interested in that kind of thing, you can go to catholicpilot.com, and you can sign up for that feed, and in that feed that goes to iTunes or whatever you're using for your podcast feeds, you'll get, not only will you get the Catholic Pilot stuff, but you'll also get the Airline Pilot Guy stuff. So all the stuff is available on the Catholic Pilot feed or on the catholicpilot.com website. If, however, you want to just listen to the Airline Pilot Guy stuff, then sign up for the Airline Pilot Guy feed. And you can find that at airlinepilotguy.com. Lots of .coms and feeds and stuff in that, sorry. Anyway, let me continue with this feedback. I know it's been a while since you asked, but I get my weather info for when I go flight simming from aviationweather.gov/adds/METARS. And I also use that, Keen. In fact, the thing that I use from aviationweather.gov/adds is their prog charts. And they have like the current conditions, and it shows the pressure systems and fronts and all that kind of stuff. And then it has the 12-hour forecast, 24-hour forecast, 36-hour forecast. And that's one of the things that I look at before I head out the door for a trip. Okay, continuing with Keen. And as for favorite airports, how about YSSY, Kingsford Smith International? That's the Sydney airport, I believe. It's pretty cool because 2 of the runways extend over the water. Yeah, it's one of many airports like that. I recently managed to get to St. Martin and spend 3 hours on the beach, Sunset Beach. I also went to Intrepid in New York and sat inside the Concorde, and Smithsonian Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. Boy, I've not been to St. Martin. I've not been on the Intrepid in New York, and I've not even gotten anywhere near a Concorde. And I've not been to the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum in Washington. So you've done so much stuff that I have not been able to do yet, Keen. So good on you. Okay, continuing. I spent a fair bit of time on Microsoft Flight Simulator X, and I'm getting a yoke, throttle, quadrant, and rudder pedals for my birthday in a few weeks. I use a Boeing 737, which, as far as I know, is as realistic as you can get. Flight management computer, APU, air conditioning, sounds, etc. It takes me about 30 minutes to even consider taking off. Anyway, I have a few questions, and if you could answer them, it would be great. First of all, what is the best way to get into the airlines? Currently, my options are Air Force relief missions, getting your private pilot's license, and slowly earn my hours, or go through the Qantas cadet program. And second, how long does it take generally to become a captain? Keep up the good work, and God bless, Keen. Okay, he puts a PS in there. I tried to send this before, but my emails have been fairly dodgy. No, Keen, it's not your fault. It's my fault. Ouch, just hit my hand on the table. Okay, your first question. What is the best route to get to the airlines? And I don't know anything about Air Force relief missions. I don't know if that's something in Australia that is different than, it might be something like the Civil Air Patrol here in our country, which is a really good program. going out and getting your private pilot's license on your own and slowly earning your hours. Yeah, a lot of people do that. Or through the Qantas Cadet Program. I'm not familiar with the Qantas Cadet Program, so I'm not sure. Listeners out there, especially if you're in Australia, what do you think? Do you have any recommendations for Keen? What the best path is or will be for him? Honestly, I don't know. Any of those sound like good options, Keen. Did I start off in Air Force relief missions? No, I didn't. I flew a little bit. I worked at FBOs, fixed base operators, little places where general aviation airplanes are hangared and tied down and get fuel and oil and get hangared and all that kind of stuff at airports, and at the Mobile Airport, Mobile Air Center, and I did one summer at the John Wayne Airport out in Southern California, at the John Wayne Airport, Orange County. And while I was at Mobile Air Center, I took a couple lessons from one of the fellow line boys. I think that's what they called us. And but then I realized that this is really expensive, and I wasn't going to be able to afford to do this on my own, and that perhaps I should do something else with my life. And so I went off to Georgia Tech to study to be an engineer, and that didn't go very well at all. And then I went over to Auburn University my sophomore through senior year, and while there I was studying electrical engineering and hitting my head against a wall, and realized that, you know what, I really want to fly airplanes for a living, and heck, maybe I'll just join the Air Force after I get out of Auburn University, which is what I did. And so basically I learned how to fly in the Air Force. I'd only had like 3.5 hours of flying time when I showed up to the officer training school in San Antonio, Texas, and went through a little program there they call Fishpot, and was deemed qualified enough to go through the undergraduate pilot training program in the Air Force. So after I went through the 3-month program of learning how to be an officer, I went to the undergraduate pilot training program at Columbus Air Force Base in Columbus, Mississippi, and learned how to fly. So that's how I did it. And that's a very abbreviated story, a lot more to it than that. But anyway, I wish I could help you out, Keen, and tell you exactly what to do, but as with many things in aviation, a lot of uncertainty. So, hey, one of you guys out there who are newer pilots than I am, who may have just reached the regionals or the majors, and you think that the way you did it was the right way to do it, or perhaps you have a better idea, send me the feedback, please, so I can help out Keen. So again, thanks, Keen, for sending the feedback in, and please continue to send it in, and I'll promise I'll try not to lose it. All right. Got some feedback from Jim, and he says, "Hi, Captain Jeff. I was just listening to your podcast when you mentioned the passing of United Airlines Captain Dennis Fitch. There's a documentary featuring Captain Fitch on YouTube entitled One Hell of a Tale. It was pretty good, so I thought that I should send the link to you so your listeners can also view this interesting video." Okay, so it's a YouTube link, and I'll post that in the show notes. Lots of stuff to put in show notes, and I hope I remember to do it all. Let's see. So thanks, Jim, for your feedback. Again, feedback at airlinepilotguy.com. Okay, over here. Yes, Ken, one of my fellow professional pilots. He's with ExpressJet. He's a first officer flying the Canada Regional Jet. He says, "I know I've been a little quiet lately, considering I sent a lot of feedback in the past, but I just wanted to let you know I'm still out here listening, enjoying the shows, and always looking forward to the next." Thank you, Ken. That means a lot. Okay. He says, "Feedback from the most recent episode. Thanks for sharing the passing of Danny Fitch, which, while his name was a little less known than Captain Al Hayes, the job he performed that day was a vital part to saving the lives of miraculously getting that plane down. About a year after that crash, I recall they made us watch a video lecture of Captain Al Hayes reflecting on the events of that day. A very moving story and worth watching if you can ever find it on the web. We watched it as part of our annual CRM training back in the military days. I tried to see it if the video was on YouTube, but no luck. Also, on a side note, I remember reading an article in Aviation Week about 4 or 5 years after that crash saying that NASA had successfully landed an aircraft using only a computer to control the throttles for direction and pitch. This was research done in response to the crash, a sort of proof of concept idea to see if this could be done, and they did it. But they said the expense and likelihood of such an event happening again would never justify the cost of putting such safety systems in place, so it never went beyond the proof of concept flight. New York airports. While I have yet to operate out of any of the New York airports. What? Come on, I know ExpressJet flies in, don't they? Huh, I thought they did. Anyway, Ken has not flown into or out of any of the New York airports. He said he's talked to co-workers who have, and just like any other major airport, I get the impression that once you've been there a few times, you get familiar with the routine, and it's not that big a deal. And just like you said, I hear that getting stuck in the international push can lead to a taxi time of up to 45 minutes, sometimes even longer than that, believe it or not. But other times of the day, it's next to nothing. One big plus to operating in and out of New York, I hear the views on a nice day can be spectacular. Well worth the price of admission. Yes, I concur with that. I suppose any major airport can seem daunting at first, and the one I sometimes dread is O'Hare. That's in Chicago. I've only been in and out of there a couple of times, and the taxiing is what intimidates me the most. I always fear that the ground controller is going to unload an alphabet soup of letters on me, but in reality it's never been that bad. I once ran into an old friend, and after mentioning that I was Atlanta-based, he said, "Wow, that place is a mess. How do you deal with that?" So I guess it's all about perspective and what you're used to. Since Atlanta is a walk in the park for me, a place where I can pretty much anticipate everything they're going to say, and I'm sure that the same is true of other pilots based in O'Hare and other major airports. Yep, that's true. The first time you go to a big airport that you're not familiar with, it's crazy. In fact, it used to be back in the old days, you little whippersnappers. O'Hare International didn't use letters for the taxiways. They actually had names. And so they'd say something like, take taxi to runway 22 left via the inner, branch, wedge, cargo. Let's see, what are some others? Wolf. I don't remember all the names they used for all these different taxiways, but for somebody who's used to letters and numbers for taxiways, and you start hearing all these, you just kind of go, "Oh my gosh, what did he just say? What is he talking about?" But after a while, you get used to it, and in fact, it becomes very clear what they want you to do. Almost more clear than just saying, the inner alpha, left at alpha 15, left on delta, runway 22 left, or whatever. So, anyway, I have other stories about O'Hare that I recall when I was a flight engineer. But crazy place. Okay, going on with Ken's feedback. Enjoyed the feedback sent in concerning Part 91.21. Very informative, and I totally agree with you on this issue. Hopefully cooler heads will prevail someday, and they'll relax the rules on this. Books. I just wanted to share that I recently purchased a book you referred to about a year ago. It was Len Morgan's Reflections of a Pilot. Absolutely love the book. I keep it in my flight bag now, and whenever I get a few extra minutes in flight, I pass the time. Wait a minute. If I get a few extra minutes, after a flight, of course he's not reading while he's in flight, I pass the time flipping a few pages. I would consider Len Morgan as one of the great aviation writers, ranking right up there with Ernie Gann's famous writing, and I agree. Again, that's Reflections of a Pilot by Len Morgan. He was a columnist in Flying magazine for many, many years. I think the name of his column was Vectors. And his Reflections of a Pilot is just a compilation of some of his favorite columns in Flying magazine. And it's out of print, unfortunately, but you can still find it out there. Good captain, bad captain. Been flying with a lot of line check airmen lately. Just a coincidence, I guess, but they do tend to add a sense of formality to the cockpit. While your average line pilot is a little bit more laid back, the line check guys can be very meticulous, where I find myself being extra careful to make sure all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted, so to speak. But with your average line pilot, it's more of a we can loosen our ties and relax a little bit type of atmosphere. But it's not all bad. I've actually learned a few things from the check airmen, stuff that will hopefully make me a better pilot someday. Yeah, I hear that a lot from a lot of the co-pilots I fly with, Ken. They say that occasionally they'll fly with the line check guys, and yeah, they're a little uptight, but I think they have to be. That's what is called for in their job. Okay, I'm currently on day 3 of 4 doing the overnight in Springfield, Missouri. Looking forward to being home tomorrow night. My original captain called in sick for this trip, and so I'm now on captain number 3. He's a nice guy, but I notice he tends to ride the boards a lot and without hesitation. Ken means that he uses the speed brakes a lot. Today he was sliding them in and out like a race car driver working a shifter. While using the boards is not a bad deal, I always try to avoid them only to provide a smoother ride for the passengers. My goal on any flight is not to use them unless ATC puts me in a tight spot, and I have no choice. And not using any on an RJ is no easy task, since we cannot dirty up the plane until slowing to 200 knots. So it takes a little forward thinking. Well, that's all for now. I gotta go. Keep up the good work and keep the great shows coming. Until next time, take care. Thanks, Ken. And speaking of riding the boards, that reminds me of something that was supposedly said on on the radio. Air traffic control asked this old crusty captain to increase his rate of descent, and so he was doing his best, and he said, can't you use your speed brakes or your boards? And he said, nope. He said, the speed brakes are for my mistakes, not yours. So anyway, probably didn't say that very well, but wow, I've already been going now again for an hour and 17 minutes. Is that right? Oh my, I am so sorry. Another long show, but wanted to put this stuff out there for you. Let me look through my list of things before I wrap up the show. And one of the things I wanted to mention, it's just a short thing regarding iPhone apps. If you have an iPhone and you stay in a lot of hotels and they happen to use LodgeNet, and actually one of the more modern installations of LodgeNet, the Hyatt Places and some of the more modern hotels that have the system, check it out. If you go to the LodgeNet menu and go to, I think it's, I forgot exactly what it says, something about connecting via your phone or something like that. Anyway, you go to LodgeNet. You go to the App Store, look for an app called LodgeNet, mobile, I think, and it's free. You download it, and then when you're in your room, you go to the menu, and if it's the more modern LodgeNet system, you can enter the code that it's displayed on your television screen, and you can put that in your iPhone app, and then you have a list. You can control your TV through your iPad or iPhone, which is pretty cool. And the coolest thing for me, I guess, is that it has like a listing of the TV channels, and I can go and see, oh, I want to watch TBS, so I can push that button and automatically connect it to TBS. Want to watch Fox News Channel there, Weather Channel, etc. I don't have to flip through the channels. I can just push the button and go directly to it, and I think it's pretty cool. So I've used it several times already, so if you're a business traveler and you are in a lot of hotels, as I am, you might want to check that out. LodgeNet, LodgeNet app, and find that in the iTunes App Store. And finally, let me tell you a little bit of a personal story here about, not long after I started my Catholic Pilot podcast back in September of 2009, in October of 2009, on Facebook, I'm Captain Jeff on Facebook, by the way, I received a message from this gentleman named Ty Jefferson Oayele. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Ty. And he wrote to me back in October saying, "Thank you so much for accepting my friend request, sir. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful I sent you a friend request because I think you are a pilot. Yes, I need help. I need some professional advice. I want to go into aviation college. I want to be a pilot just like you, sir. I've always wanted to be a pilot since I was a little kid, have started taking the right steps into becoming that. I've sent my credentials to some colleges in America, and they have replied to me telling me that I have what it takes to be in aviation college. Ever since then, I've been reading a lot of articles online about the aviation industry. During my research, I found out that some colleges are not well accredited. I sent my documents for review to the following colleges in America: Broward College in Florida, Dowling College in New York, and Phoenix Aviation College also in Florida. My dream is to become a commercial airline pilot later in life, which I know will come after so many years of hard work and gaining experience. My question now is, sir, are these colleges up to standards to take me to the top of my career? I found out again that I have to pick the type of aircraft I want to be trained on. I don't know which one is right for me. Are there specific colleges that are recommended to train upcoming pilots? I will appreciate it, sir, if you can kindly advise me on the right steps to take my dream to the next level. I sent you a friend request, sir, because your name, Jeff, is my English name, Jefferson. Thank you so much for accepting my friend request. Okay, so I wrote back to him and gave him some information, at least what little information I could give him about recommendations for aviation colleges and such. In February of 2010, well, you know what, I'll skip it because we're getting kind of long in the tooth, so to speak, here. Over the years, every few months or so, we communicate, and he updated me in February of 2011, and, oh no, I'm sorry, April of 2010, so not quite a year after he first made contact with me, he said he had finally gotten admission into St. Cloud State University in Minnesota. And then in almost a year later, February 2011, he said he'd really love to meet me sometime, and if I'm ever up in Minnesota at St. Cloud State University, please let him know so he can come over and meet me. And then in November of 2011, he said, "Good day, sir. It's been a while, but to complete my aviation admission at St. Cloud University," I guess he was in the midst of completing the process, and he got a mail from them last month asking him to pick another course of study because its aviation school is no more operational, or no longer operational. Could you please recommend another good college for me so he can start the admission process all over again? And so I sent some feedback to him regarding that. And then just this year, last month, April, he said, "I'm glad to hear from you, sir. I'm almost giving up hope on making it to aviation school. Where we are, there's a friend that had the same dream as well, and two friends have made it into aviation colleges. One is in Phoenix, East Aviation, which runs for 1 year, and he's in the States, and he's doing very well. And the other is in South Africa. Both of them started training at the same time. We all got admission, but for me, I don't have a rich family to raise the huge amount of money that he needs for doing this." He said he tried seeking a loan in the United States, but he found that he doesn't have what it takes to get one. And he said he's beginning to lose hope because right now it would take a miracle to help me into aviation school. And he told his mom about the whole thing last year, and she felt so bad that she couldn't render any help. I even told her about you and showed her your picture, and my mom, the poor woman, just said that I should just keep praying and miracles do happen. So I wrote back to Ty Jefferson just a few weeks ago, and I said I would mention this on my podcast. I'm not promising anything to Ty, but I'm not sure who everybody is listening to this, but if somebody out there, number one, has an idea for Ty Jefferson, remember he's in Nigeria, I believe, in Africa, or perhaps somebody out there who has a lot of money, who wants to be a humanitarian or a philanthropist and wants to help out this young man who has a dream to become a professional pilot, perhaps you can get in contact with me and I can get you in contact with him, and maybe we can do something to help him out. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. I don't know if there's anything that can be done for Ty Jefferson Owayele or not, but if you're listening, Ty, I'm trying to help you as much as I can, and I'll continue to pray for you. And yes, miracles do happen, so you never know. So that's it. Let me look through my list here, make sure I got everything that I wanted to talk about on this show. Yeah, I think so. No, not quite. There are a few things still left on my list that I'm just going to have to hold over for Airline Pilot Guy, episode number 31. So again, look for all the links that I mentioned in the show notes. You can find that at airlinepilotguy.com. Go to Captain Jeff TV and check out this video recording, and basically it's the podcast with just a picture of me staring into the camera. Very boring, I know, but anyway, if you're interested, that's where you can find it, Captain Jeff TV. I should have a link on the show notes for that as well. And finally, again, feedback, just go to the Airline Pilot Guy site, click on that send voicemail tab, 30499-PILOT, that's the Google Voice feedback line, feedback at airlinepilotguy.com. Follow me on Twitter, Airline Pilot Guy, all one word. On Facebook, Captain Jeff, that's facebook.com/CAPT_JEFF. And I think that's about it. So until we meet again next time, I hope you have a great week, and wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care, and God bless. And now my outro, which I guess can be this.